The local boogeyman came out of retirement and joined forces with a disgruntled auto mechanic to wreak havoc on your community. What would you do? Haddonfield's resident punching bag has finally had enough, and it seems he's found his own Mr. Miyagi in the form of a hulking, psychopathic killing machine of indeterminate supernatural ability. Together, they're fixing to tear this town a new one, starting with basically anyone that's even so much as raised their voices to them in the past. If we want to survive, we'll have to try really hard not to make the worst decisions.
Purdy Pie. I don't know what I was saying. Poon. I don't know, but that one clown dude, let me see. Trying to think of what it's called. What's my nigga name again? Yeah, this nigga right here. What's my nigga name? His name It. Like, what's his name again? Yeah, is it It? Nah, nigga had a name. It was started with a P, didn't it? Name is not It. Yup. Some nigga name again. Yeah, Pennywise. I knew it started with a P. What the video again? Yeah, them Pennywise case.
It's imaginable at every possible turn, which seems to be easier said than done around here. I'm gonna break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat Michael Myers in Halloween Ends.
Yup. Video may show minor, dramatized fictional violence for movies. Fictional violence is not focused on this video. An excessively violent imaginary has been blurred. Masks of obscurity are omitted. This content may include facial remarks, occasional mild profanity, and mild references. This content is for entertainment only. None of the strategies or advice present in this video is to be condoned or treated seriously. If your YouTube homepage is full of puppy, Halloween, Ryan's World, and Fortnite, you should probably leave now. So is this a joke? Do I have to put descriptions on my video if I curse? Let me search that up. I already got one. I don't know. I ain't gonna lie, I do remember it was an era of YouTube. I don't know what it was called again. I'm trying to think of what it was called. They real life, they had naked people, like actual, you could see, and it was like girls, and they was like competing for dudes. It was like multiple dudes, and you start from like the legs up, and they would go up, and you would see everybody meet, and you would just pick off that. It was like some girls, and then it was one with boys too, where they chose girls, and I don't know if they still got it up, but you could actually see like they yiddies, they Kunani, the Dingalingy, all of that. I don't know why they had that on YouTube. It was literally uncensored, and it was up for like a good year too. So I don't know if it's still up. I don't know what it's called. I watched like one episode though. I ain't gonna lie. I did watch like one episode or two, or maybe three. But that's how many I watch. I don't know. Nigga ain't answered my question.
Corey is kind of a dork. It's Halloween night, and instead of spending the occasion slugging back shots of apple pie with his fellow 20-somethings, he's boldly volunteered to babysit the Allen family's insufferable offspring over at their lavished 4-story home. Boy, that sure is a long way down. I hope the banister is suitably reinforced to prevent any unfortunate accidents. In direct defiance of the client's clear instructions, the two sit down to watch the single greatest horror movie ever created. However, don't go mistaking this little feature for an act of bonding. Junior's clearly the one running the show here.
And I don't really feel like pretending to be best friends with an ugly boy babysitter.
Charming. Really makes me invested in wanting to keep you alive while your parents are out cooking up a sequel. Seriously though, you're really gonna take that kind of lip from a bedwetter? He's not even half your size. Since the kid's parent.
I ain't gonna lie. I did use the feel like everybody use that inverted camera on TikTok. The only thing is, I didn't never realize that my lazy eye is the first thing people probably notice about me. I thought you saw this eye first. No, my lazy eye is like the main one. Like, cause for me, it's on my left. For everybody else to see it, they see it on my right. Or no, it's on my right, but for me, I see it like on my left. It just look crazy.
It's told us he's afraid of the
Can't
dark.
believe
A better
That like degrade my stats by like 3 points, bro. And my eye being a lazy eye, I gotta get that fixed or something. I don't know. I don't want to pay for no surgery. That's low-key crazy. I don't know.
idea would be to slip out to the garage and shut the power off of the breaker. Then he'd probably do whatever we told him just to keep from getting gobbled up by the monster under the bed. Bonus points if we let him sweat it out in the living room for a little bit before we come back. What? It's Halloween. Brutally traumatizing small children is pretty much half the fun. As long as we flip the lights back on by the time his parents come home, they'll probably just write it off as some kind of freak electrical outage. That's assuming they're even coherent enough to understand, much less give a goddamn. Lacking the testicular fortitude to put the fear of God into a 9-year-old, Corey slinks off into the kitchen to drown his frustrations with whatever they got in the fridge. Whoa, a little early for the hard stuff, don't you think? Suddenly, the sound of something falling over draws him back to the other room, where it seems someone came through in a hurry, and Jeremy's nowhere to be found. Great going, Mrs. Doubtfire.
Suck it, babysitting.
Gotta go with the good son on this one. You had one job and you blew it. Kid's probably halfway to Neverland by now. Just then, Corey hears Jeremy calling for help from the top floor. You might want to get a move on before the screaming turns into silence. Then again, we should probably find something to arm ourselves with first. After all, tis the season. Nobody's seen the hometown horror since the time he single-handedly wiped out an angry mob the year before. Oh, never mind. Looks like our hero found himself a bread knife? Starting to lean more towards this all being just a ruse meant to pull one over on the babysitter. Even if the hash-slinging slasher chose to grab something other than the butcher knife from the block, why would he just leave it on the stairs for us to grab on our way up? Besides, you'd think Kiddo would have waited 5 minutes to start losing his shit after seeing a 7-foot-tall masked lunatic walk in through the front door. This video is sponsored by Scentbird. Scentbird is a
Okay, didn't ask.
gallons to get home. Speaking of which, here they come now, and just in time to watch this happen.
What was that?
Look, I might need to watch some videos too.
Well, at least we don't have to worry about him ratting us out for.
To damn, like, hold on. Last time.
Hey, everybody.
I most definitely was watching these niggas though. Am I tripping? I know I'm subbed on my other channel though, but could have swear that this is the first channel I started watching them on. I don't know. I guess I might have just been tripping. I had a couple accounts anyway.
If the local boogeyman came out of retirement and Corey's morbid reputation precedes him, bringing us to this ugly episode outside the Quickie Mart.
You're that psycho babysitter. He killed that kid, didn't he? Yep.
What's the world coming to when a man can't even drink his chocolate milk without getting called a murderer by passing gangs of Zoomers on the street? The ringleader chooses violence, but before the rest can join in to put Corey on ice, local legend Lori shows up to teach them the error of their ways. Nice. Just go right ahead and slash the expensive white-walled tires on their classic car. It's not like you'll be the very first person they think of the instant they find out. Sure, if this were some massive sprawling metropolis like New York or LA, where there was virtually no chance of you ever running into them again, I'd say knock yourself out. But in a town like this, you're almost certain to cross paths eventually, and there won't always be old ladies around to bail your ass out before they can kick your teeth in. Besides, they know who you are now. It's not unreasonable to think that they might figure out where you live or where you work and ambush you when you least expect it. Also, probably wasn't such a good idea to go squeezing that yoo-hoo to the point it exploded. Not only did it escalate the situation dramatically, you pretty much just cut your love life in half on that piece of broken glass. Lucky for him, Lori's on hand to drive him to the nearby hospital, where it just so happens her grand...
I think on Demi, I might need to watch Demi because Then they show you the blood, don't they? They don't see none of the sense.
Daughter Allison works as a nurse.
I
The
never
two
seen
seem
the
to hit
sense
it
on
off
David.
almost immediately. And once he's patched
David
up,
wasn't
Corey
excited
follows
for
her out to the
this.
parking
Everything
lot
is
for
I
a
don't know
peek
what's
at her
going on.
undercarriage. You know, cause her muffler's been rattling. With that out of the way, the flirtation resumes. Evidently, last year's bout of Michael Myers' mayhem
Hold on,
really
wait.
did a number on the Hayden Field single scene, as Allison sure doesn't waste any time before asking him out on a date.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
For real, dude sucks with kids. But apparently
Yeah,
the women
chill
in
out.
this family have a thing
I
for
thought Rose getting
matadors.
put
They
on
see
and
a red
everything.
flag and just go charging
Is that a
right
girl?
in. The following night, Allison picks Corey up from his mother's house, and the pair heads over to a Halloween party at one of the local
Car was
watering
about to
holes.
explode.
Things start off pretty well, with Corey finally having a chance to show off the killer moves he's been working on, while punch dancing out in the forest. However, it isn't long before the young man's checkered past catches up with him. While ordering at the bar, he finds the former Miss Allen at the bottom of a bottle, and it turns out she hasn't quite forgotten about the time he Spartan kicked her precious little hellspawn into an early grave. Seems she doesn't give a damn what the courts ruled. As far as she's concerned, Corey gave her Brett the boot just for the thrill of it. Fortunately,
R.I.P.
the
a baby
bartender
boy.
sees what's going on and reins her in before she can turn the whole crowd against him. But the damage is done. Corey storms out of the bar and hits the road. And despite
stay
Allison's
inside.
pleas for him to shake it off and go back
looks like
inside,
that.
he decides
Ruled
he'd
it,
rather
like,
spend the
get
rest
out.
of the night alone, sulking on the sidewalk, than with the good-looking
sell
lady
out.
that's inexplicably attracted to
sell
him.
out.
Unfortunately, Mrs. Allen isn't
on
the only
fire.
one around town with an
On
axe to
fire.
grind. Apparently, that band of degenerates from the convenience store has been cruising around all night, looking to properly thank him for the flat tire. Gee, I wonder what tipped them off. However, Corey's in no mood for pleasantries.
You gonna murder us same way you killed that kid?
Nice work, Zorro. As a general
I don't know
rule,
about
if you're
pulling out
gonna
a knife
pull a
and
weapon
stuff,
on
but-
somebody, you better be willing to use it, or at
Not
least
fact.
hold on to it tight enough that the riffraff can't tap it out of your
Not
hands
fact.
with a single swipe. Although, given Corey's well-known track record
really
involving
cocked that back,
insolent
like-
youth, leaving a couple dead teenagers on the side of the road probably wouldn't help him much in the court
I
of
would beat you
public
with my
opinion,
hands.
regardless of whether they might have been asking for
The only
it. I
reason
know
I would
you
ever
have a
be
lot of
scared is if they
important
got a
brooding
gun.
to do back home in your race
This
car
one I'd
bed,
just
but
get beat
shoving your
up.
way past the first one only to put yourself square in
Stab
the
him
middle
with
of
a
them
knife
was
or into somebody's
supremely
life is
stupid.
crazy.
After all, it wouldn't take a mind reader to know that they were planning to jack you up from the very beginning. Instead, we should have kept all the potential threats in front of us to maximize our options. Then, we could make a run for it if we needed to. Not to mention the fact that we wouldn't have to worry about duking it out in two different directions once things got spicy. By the way,
Indeed.
totally neglecting one of these clowns to square up on the other is exactly how you wind up in a rear naked choke. Yeah, just like that. Now would have been a great time to pull out that pocket knife and jab this jerk in the kidneys. You know, if you hadn't already lost it over the side of the bridge. The good news is you're about to get a chance to go look for it, provided you survive the fall.
Dead? Go down and look.
I guess now he knows how Jeremy feels. Flat as a
Yep.
pancake. I'm joking, of course. Jeremy can't feel anything. And Corey will probably wish he can't either once he comes to. Assuming whoever or whatever is dragging him into this drain pipe doesn't give him the Georgie treatment.
Pennywise.
The next morning,
Yep,
Corey awakens
yep.
to find himself alone in a
Pennywise is
rat-filled
really a scary
sewer.
movie.
Upon getting his
If you say
bearings, he
otherwise,
heads
you
for the
lying.
light at the end of the tunnel, only to wind up face to face with the patron saint of psychos himself. However, instead of snapping his neck like a pencil right there on the spot, Michael Myers uses his recently developed mind link powers to look into Corey's past, and apparently
putting a
it's
nigga
so
on.
depressing he decides to let him go. Dude, imagine being so pathetic even a mass murderer feels sorry for you. Given a second chance at life, Corey scrambles out of the culvert as fast as he can, just in time to bump into No Bark Noonan out on patrol. The old man takes the opportunity to rave incoherently before demanding he return to the sewer and deal with the heavily armed chupacabra dwelling within. But Corey's had enough. He grabs old Sticky away from the crackpot and forces it under his ribs, leaving the chosen one sprawled out under the overpass in a pool of his own fluids. Gotta give Corey props for pulling
R.I.P.
off
to
the
my boy.
disarm without getting cut to shit. As any YouTuber that's ever touched a mat will tell you, it's pretty much impossible to fend off a knife attack without getting cut. That said, not a big fan of how he chucked that knife away without even trying to wipe off his prints. Sure, it's not like anyone's gonna be filing a missing persons report for this guy, but on the off chance someone happens upon the body, Corey's fingerprints would still be on record. Self-defense or not, if they somehow managed to recover the knife, all it would take is the
Indeed.
testimony
I
of the
would hope
punks
that my
that
nigga
tossed him
Michael
down
Myers
there to
would come
connect
through,
him to
though.
the incident and get
He
him
has
locked up.
superpowers.
I'm not saying we should report
He
the
better make that
incident to the
body
cops,
disappear.
but maybe take the knife
That'd
and
be
body
fine.
back in the pipe for Michael to play with. At that point, anyone that finds them probably won't be around long enough to make it an issue. After stopping by his house to get cleaned up, Corey heads over to Allison's place to apologize for ditching her at the party. Despite the visible look of horror on her grandmother's face at his sudden change in aura, Allison accepts his apology apology and agrees to go on a walk with him, which Corey sees as the perfect
don't kill him
opportunity to
again.
drop this little truth bomb.
I killed someone.
Jesus, already? Dude's not even
That's
cold.
insane.
Besides, I feel like this is more of a third date conversation. Ah, well, it doesn't matter. Looks like she's totally down for it. With that off his chest, Corey takes Allison to break into the long since abandoned house where his life changed forever. Yeah, it turns out he was only talking about the child he killed. Smart move. Should probably make sure she's a ride or die before letting her know about the latest one. The trauma team spends the rest of the day discussing the incident.
Can't put it on
before
to the
sitting
latest
down.
one though. Nigga, that's exclusive. You gotta pay for the latest one. You gotta be with each other for about like 10 years. Then you can leak the data. That was really dark. About to be more freezing. I gotta cover. I'll do all that after I'm out the shower.
Down at a local diner to reminisce about the long list of bad memories the town brings to mind. Speaking of which, here comes Allison's wasted ex-boyfriend Doug to make a complete ass of himself in this family-friendly establishment. Fortunately, in addition to memory swapping and instant laser eye surgery, Michael's super Care Bear stare helped Corey find his big boy voice, which he uses to politely tell this loser to get lost. For once, it seems he might actually be able to resolve a situation without winding up on the ground. Except this isn't over. After dropping Allison off at her house, Corey notices a strange vehicle following him in the distance, prompting him to head back over to the bridge for
R.I.P.
a
to
good
my boy.
old-fashioned ambush. The mystery machine eventually arrives on the scene, and now walks Doug with Maglite in hand. Yeah, I should probably take this time to mention that the dude's one of Haddonfield's finest, meaning he's almost certainly armed. In that case, whatever we do had better be decisive. Otherwise, we could wind up breathing out of a new hole in our head. Oh, or we could just throw a jacket over his head and hope for the best. Seriously, Corey's lucky all he got was a flashlight to the face. I'll give him points for running the old pie in the windowsill, but we should have used the opportunity to come over the top with something heavy, like a tire iron or a rock. That said, if the plan was always to try and lure him down into the rabbit hole, it would have been a better idea to just stage the light there in the first place. As for Doug, are you seriously gonna get down on your hands and knees to chase your romantic rival through the tunnel of blood? You realize he's probably standing on the other side, ready to bash you over the head the second you pop out, right? Just let it go. I get that there aren't all that many fish in this pond, but you gotta believe if this is the kind of guy she's hanging out with now, you probably don't want none of that anymore. Well, apparently the potential shame of re-downloading Hinge is just too much for him to handle, because he's doing this. And wouldn't you know it, almost as soon as he gets on his feet, Michael Myers comes out of nowhere and pins him against the wall. But it seems the old slasher's lost his edge. Good thing Corey was there to follow up with a beatdown, although he's having trouble closing the deal.
Show me how to do it.
Just keep doing what you're doing, dude. A few more smacks with that Maglite and Doug's a goner. Besides, since when do you have trouble killing people? You didn't even have to try the first time. Let's face it, you're a natural. Inspired to share his craft with the younger generations, Michael retrieves his favorite kitchen knife from its hiding place in the wall and starts doing what he does best. Evidently, it's just like riding a bike, as it only takes a few stabs before he's back at the top of his game. Having renewed his sense of self-worth, he's ready to embark on one last rampage before this worn-out franchise gets shelved for good, and his new partner in crime knows just where to begin. Elsewhere in town, Allison's piece of boss, Dr. Mathis, is gearing up for a romantic night with her fair-weather friend and co-worker, Deb. Yeah, take a wild guess who just got a promotion recently. Nurse Ratchet steps away for a moment to freshen up for the main event, when a sudden commotion from outside prompts her to go check on her employer. Hey, good on her for not just brushing it off and assuming everything's okay. But if you're really that concerned something might have gone wrong, you should bring your phone with you in case it's an emergency. After all, Dr. Mathis isn't exactly in peak physical condition, so it's probably worth the added precaution, just in case all this excitement's left him stiff as a board. Upon reaching the courtyard of this humble abode, Deb flips the lights on to find the good doctor getting uncorked by Raggedy Andy. Terrified, she retreats back inside the house, just in time to lock Corey outside. But before she can get through to the police, the other half of the equation emerges from a nearby closet for a little redecorating. Guess he also has super-powered stud-finding capabilities. Not sure why the pinup girl would have gone back to play peekaboo with Corey while trying to get the cops on the line. I mean, it's not like she could have known the OG was about to come out of nowhere and stick her to the wall like zebra skin, but even if he hadn't, that sliding glass door was not gonna hold forever. If I were in her shoes, I would have taken the phone deeper into the house and locked myself in wherever I could. Of course, there probably isn't a single room in this place that could hold back a human wrecking ball like Mike, but at least we might be able to warn the town about the copycat killer before they Jack Torrance their way inside and hacked us to pieces. As we all know, killing is hard work, and because he was kicked out of his mom's place for talking to a girl, Corey decides to sleep off last night's festivities where it all began. Well, for him at least. Yeah, nothing says it was an accident, quite like snoozing away on the dried bloodstain where Jeremy hit the floor, starting to wonder if Mrs. Allen wasn't onto something. This time, he's awakened by the sound of Lori menacingly rocking back and forth in the dining room chair. Apparently, she's been waiting around for God knows how long so she could wax poetic about the two types of evil before telling him to leave Allison alone. Man, if only you didn't try and hook her up with the first child killer you met, then maybe none of this would have happened. Unfortunately, her speech attempt falls flat, and Corey makes it clear that if he can't have her granddaughter, no one will. However, when he goes to drive his point across with fire poker, it turns out she's already Batmaned her way out of the nearby window. There's a reason this conversation usually involves a shotgun, but at least he wasn't shy about his intentions. It's too bad Lori didn't have the foresight to record this exchange for Allison's benefit. After all, if the kid was really demon-possessed like she thought, then any conversation they were going to have was bound to take a turn for the worse. Of course, this works both ways. Now Corey knows for sure she's onto him. Better start scrapping up for when he inevitably shows up at the house to make good on that threat. First things first, having successfully killed all of 2.5 men, it seems Corey thinks it's time he wore the mask himself. You know, cause why maintain the working relationship you have with an unstoppable killing machine that has the power to read minds? He literally just went with you to help sort out your girlfriend's work drama. I'm pretty sure he'd be down to clown on this op as well, especially since it involves settling the score with the one person he's been trying to kill for almost half a century. Also, think for a second. Michael's been wearing that thing for more than 4 straight years. You know it's gotta smell like hot, sick in there. Good luck sneaking up on people while you're constantly fighting back the urge to vomit uncontrollably. Having claimed his prize, he sets out to tie up a few loose ends before his final confrontation with the Golden Girl. And who better to start with than the punks that sent him down this dark road to begin with? Corey tracks the kids down to a local service station and leaves his calling card on the hood of their convertible. Once they take the bait, he lures them over to his stepdad's pick and pull to play a little hide and shriek. I wonder why he would just wait around for us to spot him after vandalizing our car. It's almost like he wants us to follow him into that creepy abandoned junkyard for some reason. Upon reaching the wrecking yard, the gang decides to exact their revenge on Corey's conspicuously placed motorcycle. But just as they're about to hook it up to the back of their car for a little sidewalk surfing, it seems the Iron Mullet has fallen asleep at the wheel.
Wait, what are you trying to do, man? Suck your own. Oh my god!
I guess somebody should have kept an eye out. Suddenly, a nearby tow truck roars to life, which for some reason makes the girls want to jump right into the headlights like a pair of mule deer instead of, say, running in literally any other direction. Do you not see the locked gate topped with barbed wire down there? Unless you're planning to pole vault that thing, there's no way in hell you're gonna make it over the top before that wrecker makes you into road pizza. The fencing surrounding the rest of the perimeter seems to be basically the same height as the gate, and you could probably find an old junker to stand on to make climbing out even easier. Whatever, screw lateral movement, right? Better to just bet the house on our ability to outrun an internal combustion engine. There's a recipe for longevity if I've ever heard one. Oh, and the bright ideas don't stop there. What do you think Stacy does after seeing her friend get mowed down by some maniac in a pickup truck? Did you guess run back towards the still idling vehicle currently occupied by the killer? If so, I probably don't even need to tell you what happens next. I wonder what the fearless leader's been up to while his friends were out competing in the Darwin Olympics. Well, in a shocking display of brain function, he decides to run over to the nearby office and beg the owner for help, who immediately dials 911 and reports the incident to the law enforcement. Nah, he actually decides to arm the complete stranger before immediately turning his back on him to go investigate. Jesus Christ, dude. For all you know, this little piece of crap came here to just screw you over. Why else would a bunch of idiot high schoolers be trespassing around your business in the middle of the night? Besides, even if he's telling the truth, what makes you think he's competent enough with a firearm to to not punch a hole in your head by accident. Yeah, sorry about your friends, dude, but I'm locking the door and calling the cops. Here's a claw hammer in case you don't feel like suffering a slow and painful death at the hands of a chronically single stepson. Old Ronald McDummy makes his way to the busted gate where he finds Margot still alive underneath the wreckage. However, before he can tap into his old man's strength and yeet the truck right off of her, he notices Corey standing quietly in front of the truck. Yeah, you see how your wife's weird kid is holding a creepy Halloween mask next to a bunch of dead and wounded teenagers? You think it's possible he might have had something to do with it? Couldn't be. Clearly, this is all some kind of misunderstanding. Evidently, that's what's going through his head, because his first reaction upon seeing Terry come out with a rifle is to put himself directly in the line of fire, with predictable results.
I got you! No!
Mind-blowing. Props to him for laying down his life to protect someone he cares about, but it might have been worth asking yourself if this creep is really worth the headache. And Terry, you stupid quit. All you had to do is not call your shot like that, and Ronald would not have had a chance to screw everything up. That said, I wouldn't recommend taking a shot like that in the first place, unless there was an imminent deadly threat. Either way, now you have to find him again. Might be a good time to fall back to the office and call for backup. After all, Corey works here, meaning he knows the layout of this place. Going in after him is just going to result in you getting ambushed and disarmed. As for Margot, well, it's not looking good. Her only hope of making it out alive is the fire department showing up to cut her out of that mess. And given Clone High JFK still thinks he can sort this out on his own, something tells me that's not gonna happen. But hey, at least she'll have one last chance to make a half-decent decision before catching the coup de grace. Let's watch.
Stacy's dead.
You're dead too.
And she blew it. Seriously, what kind of half-baked warning was that? You couldn't have just said behind you or look out or something? Even screaming unintelligibly would have been less confusing than that. Your reward for getting cute with the callouts is a front row seat to Terry's acetylene glow-up before Corey comes back to stomp a mud hole in your face. With that out of the way, Corey loads up in the tow truck to pay his girlfriend a visit. Along the way, he drops in on a couple honorable mentions, including his own mother and the local radio DJ. Yeah, not much I can say for these folks besides some of the basics like locking your doors, keeping an eye on points of entry, and maybe hiring staff members that will recognize a serial killer when they see one. Seriously, for a town that was supposedly traumatized following a slew of brutal slayings, they sure don't seem to act like it. One would expect folks around here to be a whole lot twitchier, especially around Halloween. Back at Allison's place, it looks like Lori's gearing up to speedrunner golden years. After calling the cops to report a self-deletion in progress, she takes a Ruger LCR from her safe and assumes the position. Meanwhile, Corey arrives at the house just in time to enter the splash zone, only things aren't all they appear to be.
Did you really think I'd kill myself?
I mean, yeah, kinda. Okay, I get it was meant to be convincing, but did you really have to put a loaded gun to your head with your finger on the trigger? I'm pretty sure he couldn't see that part anyway. So, now that your daughter's boyfriend is bleeding out on the hardwood, this would be a good time to call the cops back and let them know about your insane ruse. That way, they send more than a single unit and an ambulance before the real Slim Shady shows up to finish the job. Actually, never mind. It turns out committing unalive is still on the menu. Brace yourself for this, because it's some of the dumbest decision making we've seen on the channel to date. Despite staging an ambush for the express purpose of ending this nightmare once and for all, Lori decides that she actually wants Corey to kill her. No, seriously, she even empties the last 2 shots in her revolver before walking into stabbing distance and literally telling him to do it. What the heck was the purpose of all that then? Sure, I guess she could be thinking he'll bleed to death after doing the deed, or maybe wind up getting hauled off to a mental hospital, but A, you don't know that his wounds are fatal, and B, if he does get locked up, he could wind up getting released decades later, just like the real Michael Myers. You'd literally just be starting this cycle all over again. However, instead of giving her the satisfaction of being brutally murdered in her own home, Corey decides that 2 can play at this game.
If I can't have her.
Boom. Checkmate, Granny. But she's not about to give up that easily. In a desperate bid to make her intentions even less comprehensible, Lori rips the knife out of Corey's neck, thereby completely ensuring he'll bleed to death in a matter of seconds. Oh, and just in time for Allison to walk in the door and tragically misread the situation. It's bad enough the cops are gonna think you ruthlessly executed a home invader with his own weapon. Now your grandkid is gonna go on thinking you murdered her boyfriend, which you sorta just did. Before Lori can even attempt to explain explain away the absolute screw party that just unfolded in this madhouse, Allison storms off into the rain to ugly cry back in her car. Just think, all of this could have been avoided
movie
had you
still not
just
over?
minded your own business back at the gas station. It's not over yet though, because OJ just showed up to get his back. Also, it seems Corey still has a little life left in him. Oh well, not anymore. For a second there, I thought for sure our main character's actions might come with permanent moral consequences. Thank God Michael got here just when he did. Hearing his characteristic wheezing, Lori locks the house down in anticipation of her final showdown with the very man who's haunted her dreams for decades. Bet you wish you didn't dump those last 2 shots in the sheetrock now, don't ya? Also, what's with the wheel guns in this town? There was this crazy new invention back in 1891 called the semi-automatic pistol. Maybe look into it. 17 shots of 9mm beats 5 shots of 357
Niggas
mag
only got
any day of
revolvers
the
in
god
movies.
week. Whatever, who needs guns when you have craft dinner? Gotta admit, that was a solid use of a distraction, although it might have been a good idea to follow up the disarm by dosing him in the eyes with a fire extinguisher. Depending on what kind it was, the chemicals could blind him long enough for us to gain the upper hand. Unfortunately,
that's part of
Lori's
the lore.
firefighting skills are no match for Michael's brute strength, but instead of just snapping her neck and getting it over with like he did with Corey, he decides to just sort of throw her around for a while until she's finally able to pin him down. I guess we're meant to believe that Michael Myers, the Michael Myers, who's been shot, stabbed, set on fire, has single-handedly fought off an angry mob, and somehow spent the last 4 years subsiding on rat carcasses in a storm sewer, was defeated in single combat by a frail old woman. Sounds right to me. Now let's see who this guy really is.
You're just a man who's about to stop breathing.
Savage. Oh, but throat cut or not, you know he's got to lash out for one last strangling before the end. Fortunately,
like that.
seems Allison forgot her purse. Otherwise, this might have ended in a draw, proving that when seconds count, cops will always be minutes away. The boys in blue finally roll in to take a statement. However, it seems this one won't be played out by the book. No, instead, they're going to gather up the townsfolk for a good old-fashioned corpse parade.
This is not how it works.
It is tonight.
After tying his body to the roof of a car like a whitetail, the procession makes its way to the local waste management facility. Once there, they finally lay their collective fears to rest in the most definitive way imaginable by feeding his body to the sewage grinder. In the end, both Michael and his disciple were taken out before they could settle the score with Lori, although they still managed to trim
Nigga
down
was
the
eating
census a
rats
bit
inside a
before that
sewer.
happened. That
Disappointed.
said, had
You better
Corey
like
taken
Myers.
her advice from the get-go,
Thought
he could have
Michael Myers
avoided
had
falling
powers
into
and stuff,
Michael's
bro.
clutches in the first place,
Thought both
thus
of you
preventing the
had powers.
series
How
of
could a
events
nigga
that
read
led to all
minds?
the mayhem. For that reason,
so
I think Halloween Ends was beaten. Moral of the story, who needs justice?
It wasn't being right. I'm not liking the Michael Myers lore. I think my nigga should have been teleporting and shit. And things of that nature. I think that they did my boy Michael wrong. He should have won. Anything like that, he should have been alive. Well, yes sir.